If you had to fight a monster that is 10 times your weight, how would you approach the situation? If you're smart, you wouldn't rush into it. You would devise a plan. This is how we approach combat in Outward. Rather than send you flinging a sword at a gigantic monster, the player must find clever ways to gain the upper hand, even when fighting something as mundane as two bandits. The first thing to keep in mind in combat is whether or not your enemy is stable on its feet. At first, your attacks do not stagger the enemy, so you need to poke at their defense until the pressure makes them flinch. Once they lose their footing, an opportunity opens up and you can land a vicious combo without fear of retaliation. Early on, you don't know a lot of tricks to gain the upper hand. However, you can use tools and switch equipment. You could, for instance, coat a weapon with poison, place a trap on the floor, and start the fight from a safe distance with a couple of arrows. Apply the poison by placing a few hits with your melee weapon, then wait defensively behind a shield until your enemy collapses. Eventually you will meet trainers and gain the opportunity to learn skills and even unlock magic. We wanted magic to have a more ritualistic approach, in which we deconstruct spell casting step by step. The very first spell you learn is the Spark, a small flame that barely hurts anything, and on its own is probably more useful as a way to light up a fire than for combat. Yet, this spark of flame is more useful than it appears. Let's say you found a mana stone while mining, converted it to a firestone using alchemy, and knew how to expand that firestone to create a magical fire sigil, and then cast Spark while standing in this fire sigil. Then you would have done the whole process to cast a fireball. This may sound impractical in a combat situation, but you can make firestones or buy them from an alchemist in preparation for what's ahead. You could even cast a sigil in anticipation of a fight and lure your enemies to your spot, then dodge in and out of your sigil to quickly throw multiple fireballs, as long as your sigil is active. This approach of decomposing your actions in multiple steps also applies to combat skills. For instance, a warrior that draws strength from her rage would need to either use a skill to fall into a deep state of rage or consume potions to attain the same effect, increasing the impact of her hits and thus decrease stability of her foes faster. Even better, she could consume her rage in a powerful twofold attack using the Feral Strikes that will leave her foes in pain and bleeding while also causing great damage. While most warrior skills don't use mana, these impressive feats damage a weapon's durability, so it will be wise to bring more than one weapon to ensure you're not stuck fighting with a dull blade by the end of a dungeon raid. There are many predators in the world of Ori, but there are also many tools at your disposal. Not every combat is handled the same, and it will be important to analyze every enemy to find a weakness you can exploit. In Outward, you can't just stand there and attack. You have to find your way of dealing with enemies, and the approach will often be indirect, but when everything happens according to plan, it is immensely gratifying.